The Rusty Frog website crashed my computer.
Welcome to Spinsters, a podcast where ever since Beyonce released Don't Break My Soul, the world has taken it as a challenge. Before we get into it, this episode is brought to you by doTERRA. doTERRA's Deep Blue Stick provides targeted, natural, and reliable relief without synthetic ingredients. Learn more at doTERRA.com/spinsters. I'm Jordan. Haley's here. Sierra's here. Harry's here. The whole crew's here. And today we have guest Mike Golic Jr., host of the football podcast Gojo, and an overall great human.
Yeah, and a very pleasant guest who was able to string two words together on a lot of unpleasant topics that we talked about today. When I failed to, of course, Jordan did, my better half. And before we really get into it, just speaking of things that are like difficult for me to talk about, but I want to talk about anyway, really quickly, last week, Eastern Kentucky was underwater. It experienced the most devastating flood that the state has seen in decades and decades. And in the recent days, I can't tell you how upsetting it's been to see it not be on the national news anymore. My aunt and uncle are big, like at 6 o'clock every day, we watch the local news, and then we watch a slot of national news before we get to Family Feud and Jeopardy. And so I know what is on the local news and what's consuming it, which is, of course, these floods. And then it's just kind of disappeared off the national news. These people have lost their childhood homes. They've lost their lifelong savings. They've lost things that they've accumulated through decades and generations. The wreckage is catastrophic and life-altering. And I think why it scares me so much to not see it on the national news is because we know how the U.S. responds to natural disasters by now and kind of the lack of real relief system that's in place. And then also when it is in place, it's short term. And in some cases, even like look at what's happened after Katrina has been revealed to have actually preyed on the people who were most affected. So I just want to say in Eastern Kentucky, first of all, shout out to all the people who took it upon themselves, just people in the community, to run the relief systems there. It was days before any kind of National Guard showed up, even the local Kentucky one. And people felt like they were totally stranded and there was no way to talk to each other. I've heard accounts of only certain cell services worked, and so people couldn't even get in contact with their family if their family was still alive. And it's just been a massive local organizing group in the community to help each other, but they definitely need help. And not to go on forever about it, but I just think it's a little bit symbolic of the community itself, because these are communities that have been preyed on for years and years and years. And there have been tons of rich people who have come in and say, I'm going to make a career off of your land and make it into a mining community and exploit your bodies. And then when it's no longer profitable for me, I'm going to leave. And of course, the thing about that is that when you do strip mining and mountaintop removal, what does it make the land more susceptible to? Mass flooding. And Jordan and I were talking about this on the phone a couple of days ago. These communities are built between mountains because they're in Appalachia. So you are literally naturally, but also because of mining, set up to flood. So whatever you're doing right now, if you're sitting on a chair eating, or you're doing your dishes, or you're driving your car, or however you're listening to this, just know that people in Eastern Kentucky do not have that option at the moment. A lot of people do not have their cars, their chairs, their tables, their cleaning supplies, their anything. So with all of that being said, please help the thousands of people who are without water, without supplies, without anything. You can donate to EKY Mutual Aid on Cashapp. That is EKY Mutual Aid on PayPal. That is paypal.me/EKY Mutual Aid. Well, shit. Should we start?
We're all just like bracing for impact.
I know we are.
God. Just an extremely, down week in a series of down years, I would say. Maybe not going to be our happiest show today, but we're going to vent. We would love for you to vent with us. And just, pause to scream or whatever. Okay, so we're going to start off with our breaking news today, which is that Brittany Griner was sentenced to 9 years in prison in Russia. I'm going to go ahead and read the Reuters write-up. Reuters? Okay, yep. There's an argument for it to be Routers. But we can, okay. A Russian court sentenced U.S. basketball star Brittany Griner to 9 years in prison on Thursday after finding her guilty of deliberately bringing cannabis-infused vape cartridges into Russia, a ruling that Joe Biden called unacceptable. Griner was arrested mid-February, and her case threw the Texan athlete into the geopolitical... That's a word I don't know. Triggers when President Vladimir Putin sent troops into Ukraine. Okay. Let me see if there's anything else that is. Griner's sentencing could now pave the way for a U.S.-Russia prisoner swap that would include the 31-year-old athlete and an imprisoned Russian who was once a prolific arms dealer. The last we heard about the prisoner swap was essentially that Russia thought it was ridiculous that the U.S. was trying to package 2 for 1 and that was unacceptable. Previous to Griner being sentenced, like the news this morning before this update came this afternoon was that Russian political figures and their figures of the court were thinking that it was making a mockery out of Russian law, that like this was even being considered and anything under 9.5 years would be brought down. For us, obviously, that's very different. This is like the most extreme ruling that feels so pointed. So Jordan, we were talking about this when you hopped on. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel really heartbroken. I think this whole situation, of course, has been terrible and not ideal for Brittany Griner, but seeing that video of her in these closing statements just pleading for her life, it feels like, her breaking down in tears, saying that she did not have criminal intent, and just hearing her say that and just knowing Brittany Griner as a person and how kind and nice she is and how giving she is, and for her to be like, I'm not a criminal, I beg you. It's like, we know that, but just zooming out and seeing where she is and that she's behind bars and that microphone and cameras are all in her face, and thinking about her wife hearing this news as we're all hearing it on Twitter, it just broke my heart. And I think this whole time I have been really positive and hopeful, and like, we're just going through everything, and then it's gonna be great at the end of it. But right now I'm not feeling too hopeful, and that's what makes me really sad.
I think with that too, it's sort of the difficult part of wrapping our arms around this. And I heard you guys talk about this when you have the intersection of like sports communities and political communities all coming together to try and, digest and disseminate this information. There's part of it, and I said at the beginning, like, you got to like make it deeply personal, because again, while a lot of people are, going to parachute in on this story or come in looking for updates, this is a human being who's dealing with the scariest possible outcome that most of us can think of, even in normal times, let alone in a country that's in the middle of wartime over there. And then to think about it from the perspective of her family or teammates, everyone involved, like it's terrifying. I've had, again, this morning, people in my life that are not people who are general sports fans or anything just texting me like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. And it's probably a good jolt for anyone who's been coming at it from that vantage point. Like, this is real. As much as we continue to think that this will spur on action for that potential prisoner swap or anything like that, there's a reality and a gravity to the situation that should be present at all times. And a morning like today just really enforces that.
Yeah, totally. Because as we're recording this, we're talking about it. We see the news, we read the news, everybody's doing all that. All of these hours, minutes, whatever that we're taking to do that, she's there alone. And so that's really the thing that we need to keep thinking about. And if you're listening to this, I'm guessing that you're not participating in this kind of thing on Twitter, but I just am amazed that I'm still seeing people be like, well, she should have known better. Well, da-da-da. If the thing is like something that harmless, even if you are guilty, right? Even if she brought it in on purpose and with the intent to use it, whatever, having this punishment for that and you saying, well, she deserves it because she should have known better. I just don't know how anyone can possibly put those two together. Like, you just have an enjoyment for other people being put in a place that they don't deserve to be. That kind of thing really confuses me, and has led to many a block.
Seriously. The comment sections, I was also going through them when the reports are coming out, and I was just like, my phone was glitching. I was trying to get out of there so fast because they don't make sense. They started talking about why she was even over there in the first place. And it makes me angry because this is empathy. Like, you have to have empathy for someone who is pleading for their life behind bars. Like, that is number one. A lot of Twitter trolls don't have that. Breaking news. That's the real breaking news today.
Yeah, it's amazing how often people seem to come online looking for their merit badge or their pat on the head from authority. Like, we see this pop up in a way different sense when it comes to any sort of like in like normal sports fodder and like any sort of negotiation between players and owners where people are more than willing to hop on the ownership side. And like, at least there you can couch it in like they technically represent the team. When it comes to stuff like this, you're right. Like, how can anyone not put themselves in that setting where you're packing in haste for a trip and something pops up like that and you look and can't say, well, clearly this rule is FUBAR. Why are we punishing? We've already, reckoned with this as a country and seen it up close and personal for a long time. So yeah, it's the portion of Twitter and the portion of bad faith people that come looking for some sort of validation. Like, look at me, look at how well I can follow the rules and you're bad for not following them like me. Let me show off my superiority is kind of wild.
Yeah, fucking op. Like, what are you even talking about? And if anything, shouldn't we know in the US that, like you just said, just because it's a rule doesn't mean it's right. And just because it's a rule doesn't mean getting punished for it is right. And especially in this case, I mean, I just honestly feel like flustered about the entire thing. Like, everything we're talking about today, I feel so flustered about. Later, I'm going to talk about Eastern Kentucky and the floods. And like, I had to write down my feelings because almost everything we're talking about today, I'm just like, I literally could cry. Like, there's so many things that, again, I'm flustered. I guess all I'm just trying to say is please have empathy for her. And I'm extending that to, the highest people in the US who hopefully will make something happen sooner than later, because waiting to see how much you can get back or whatever, or how little you have to give away, whatever, just bring her home.
Yeah.
We can acknowledge it's a complicated situation while still looking at a human being in the middle and say, man, like, it doesn't cost you anything to want good for another human being who's in a perilous situation. That can be a baseline we all operate at and acknowledge that, man, there's a lot of complicated inner, geopolitical words I don't understand that go into this. Like, man, be a human being, look at another human being, feel terrible about an objectively awful situation. Good Lord.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing is like that, just because you reminded me of it then, when people are like, well, she should have known better going into Russia. you could say the same thing about a lot of places in the United States where it's like, you don't say that, but we know that. You know what I mean? Like, someone from another country could just as easily say, well, they should have known better doing that in the U.S. Like, because things can be extremely, like, escalated fast here as well. So the entire thing is very much like I'm sitting in my chair and looking from afar. And like you said, Mike, being the most morally correct, like, narc possible. So let's move on to something also terrible, which I'm really glad that you came on.
Transition.
I'm really glad that you're on today, Mike, because you are extra familiar with this because you cover football so closely. And again, like, this makes me extremely emotional. You and I were DMing actually not that long ago, and I told you that I felt like the Deshaun Watson stuff like broke my presence online, like kind of broke me to a degree that I didn't know that I could, and made me just absolutely not want to be on Twitter, which is unrealistic for what I do for a career. If I'm not, then it's not as marketable to hire me and all of those kinds of things. And but I've never wanted to be on less than when the Deshaun Watson cases began, news began, and of course that was a while ago, because of the response that I saw. And this is a through line, honestly, from the BG stuff, because seeing how the case itself is bad enough, cases in Watson's case, but then to see the response and kind of just the, like, thoughtlessness and the complete lack of sense is really hard. So I guess the most recent update that I'm aware of, the initial punishment from disciplinary officer Sue L. Robinson's ruling on Monday was a 6-week suspension for Deshaun Watson, and the NFL is appealing. If you're not familiar with the case, it's over 30 women.
So there was essentially over, I think, 15-month period, Deshaun Watson made use of upwards of 50 different massage therapists. There ended up being 24 civil lawsuits against Deshaun Watson. There were criminal charges that were brought but later dismissed, and then 23 of the 24 civil suits have been settled at the time of this. The NFL's report in and of itself, and this is kind of new in NFL circles, what they did in going about levying this punishment. You had, normally Roger Goodell, the commissioner, was judge, jury, and executioner, for lack of a better term. He was the one who handed down and decided every decision. And now you've got the league and the players who in 2020 came together and were like, this is too much power. This is an area where the NFL has constantly managed to fumble the bag. We need a different system. And so they decided to create a system where a third party, in this case, former Judge Sue Robinson, would come in and would overview the case, would be, given materials and things to look at from the NFL and from everyone involved, and would hand down a ruling. And that was where we got. We're at the point now where everyone's also learning there was sort of a ripcord clause in this, which is the NFL has the option to appeal, and in that appeal, Roger Goodell gets to decide who hears the appeal. It can be him. It sounds like, based on reports, someone else will do it, but it's going to be someone handpicked by a commissioner for a league who wanted an indefinite suspension for about a year. So that's, I think, where this is ultimately going to go. But you're right in that the most disappointing part has been the response in a lot of ends. I like seeing Cleveland Browns training camp where Deshaun Watson is out at a fence being mobbed for autographs, where you hear adults yelling, "Watson, we've got your back." Like, that's the part that's maddening to me, because I understand sports is this weird, at times terrible place where we forgive a lot of sins in the name of production on the field for a team that we've got a rooting interest that's tied to identity and all of the tribalism that goes into that. Like, sports psychology is like a weird, fascinating place, but that's a really ugly part of it that we see all the time. But man, with how much this has been covered, and the severity of the allegations, like, there's no excuse for not knowing. There's no burying your head in the sand. The last year has been a steady stream of news about this. To be an adult out there offering that up of your own free will in public, like I said this the other day, I hope at some point you got to explain that to someone you love and get called to the mat on that, because it's insane. I understand being a fan of a team, but that doesn't mean you have to celebrate this, especially right now. We're going to see people, unfortunately, the next time he steps on the field, lapse back into that once he throws a few touchdowns, because that's the shitty reality. I don't know if I can curse on this, sorry, but that's the reality of unfortunately how this works. But that, I was just like, man, like, really? Right now, you got to be out here celebrating this like it's a victory for anyone involved. The Browns have been disappointing, the fans and that section of them. And I know it's a conflicted fan base, and I'm sorry this is kind of a rambling answer, but it's just that part of it's been maddening, man. It's that part of it. I'm used to it, and I should expect this, because this is how, fan bases and organizations tend to operate in situations like this when they're in way over their head. But it's still just like, man, come on.
Yeah, especially like the NFL too. Like, can we expect more? Like, at some point we're just like setting ourselves up for that. And I love what you said too, because the people that are celebrating now at training camp, if they're not doing it now, if he scores one touchdown, if they get one win in the preseason, everyone is going to forget about all of this and buy his jersey and everything like that. And it just makes me sick to my stomach. And I have been kind of out on this. I've chosen to not dive deep in it. So that was a perfect rehash of everything. And my question is, when they brought in this judge to kind of be the overseer, so I think that confused me too, just reading this. It wasn't in court. She was just hired by the NFL to kind of be this
a mediator.
Yeah, a mediator between it. Okay.
Yep. And
got it.
The wild part with that is, so she was brought in to be that, and the burden of
the
proof.
The wild part is she.
Yes. Well, and there's especially a part that's troubling when you consider that too, and it should be for anyone, but especially with that in mind. So the burden they operated under here was the burden of proof that would be necessary in something like civil court, where it's a preponderance of evidence was the phrase used over and over. It's a 16-page document of Sue Robinson's findings. You can find it on ESPN.com for anyone that's interested. And I, encourage people, as tough as this is, to read it, because what you see in there is a couple things that jump out. And I've talked with, Mina Kimes and a number of other people about this who are a lot smarter than me that have pointed out some of this stuff. But you look in there, and the NFL and everything they accused Deshaun Watson of and everything they were looking for in this investigation, Sue Robinson basically says, yes, based on the burden of proof we had to operate here, which is different from criminal court, different from actual civil court, but more closely resembles that, they met it. They proved that assault happened in these situations. And what Sue Robinson fell back on was the idea of precedent, that in the NFL, after the Ray Rice domestic violence instance back when that first started, the beginning of Goodell's tenure, they changed the rules about suspension for violent offenses, for domestic violence, for anything associated with that, to a minimum of 6 games. And her point was, this was nonviolent sexual assault. And as many people have pointed out, framing it like that, when any sort of unwanted touching or unwanted sexual advances, based on any number of definitions you can find for violent sexual assault, or even differentiating between the two, it is wild. And then especially considering the source. So that was, I think, a huge point of contention for a lot of people, is what is nonviolent sexual assault, when the document lays out this was unwanted touching from Deshaun Watson in the cases, in the 4 that they reviewed for this, because this wasn't all 24. It was 4 cases they reviewed for this. And so that ended up being the crux of it in a way that was mind-blowing and confusing for so many of us reading.
I mean, it's just such a barbaric, antiquated way of looking at the word violence, because on one hand, what they're saying is hitting, punching, slapping, they're thinking of the rape that we always hear about as kids, where it's don't go in an alleyway by yourself and somebody is physically beating you. That's what's in their mind. And they can't transfer that over to think that violence is someone committing an act against you that you don't want. When the real definition of violence is a far wider umbrella. It includes, of course, what I referenced first and second, but it's also people doing things that affect you negatively, harmfully, everything. Like violence is not just physical. So the fact that and this is physical, it's not that much of a reach. It's not a reach at all for her to say that this was violence. He literally, I mean, it was physical contact. So that was mind-blowing for me. Nonviolent sexual conduct sounds just like consent. She's making it sound like consent.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like if you look at that phrase and you ask someone who has no knowledge of this case, whatever, to say, what do you think this means? They would say, I think that someone's just like having sex and they're both okay with it. The other thing is that also in that 16-page document, like you said, Mike, was the fact that they said for 4 of these situations, the 4 that we're looking at, we're saying, yes, it meets our burden of proof. So essentially what that says is we are admitting that some of what all of these women have said is true. And what that also says is even if they're saying that one person saying that he harmed them isn't enough to seriously punish him. Literally, if one of these women like were true, that should be enough for him to not play until he's rehabilitated, like proven rehabilitation. So that's also frustrating because they're saying like, yeah, 4. How does 4 equal 6 games? What's the math on that?
Yeah, I'm not good at math, but that's not right.
That's not right. Yeah, that's
No.
a fraction. And when you consider all of the women too, not just the ones they considered, that is more cases than games. And at some point with the NFL, I mean, technicalities are cool in court, right? We have to do that. We're built on that. I get it as a country. But how can you say you're not a court of law? You can look at all of these cases he settled and say, well, shit, why would he have settled? I don't know how they're acting so... There's the technicality behind it. It's a fucking sport. You're operating a stupid fucking sport. It's not a court of law. So the fact that they're being so technical, and this is Sue Robinson's first case, so maybe she's like, I need to keep the players happy with me. You need to go re-examine what the fuck you're doing and your morals. You are fucking selling out. Like, a woman did this. Every step of this is so vile. So now, the reaction, you're right, Mike. I think the other takeaway is like all of the various reactions, right? Sue Robinson's reaction, fans' reactions, what we see on Twitter. I saw this completely disgusting thread the other day that was like, what's the worst? In response to the Deshaun Watson thing, what's the worst thing an athlete could do and you'd be fine? You'd still want them on their team. And they were talking about like Miles Bridges, like all this. I literally threw up in my mouth.
God.
Like it caused an involuntary, like I threw up in my mouth. It was the grossest thing I'd ever seen. There's that response. There's the Browns response, which I have right here and I would love to read for you guys. Quote, we respect Judge Robinson's decision and at the same time empathize and understand, no Oxford comma, that there have been many individuals triggered throughout this process. This is from the owners. We know Deshaun is remorseful that this situation has caused much heartache to many and he will continue the work needed to show who he is on and off the field and we will continue to support him. Mike, has he shown any remorse?
No, and in fact, in the 16-page document we talked about, one of the things that Sue Robinson also said, because again, when breaking it down by the standard she had there, nonviolent sexual assault had at maximum produced a 3-game suspension or anything, the closest precedent they had. And she said one of the aggravating factors in why she went to 6 games was the fact that there has been no remorse from Deshaun Watson. And that is based on then the private investigation that she has conducted and the public statements. Anytime we've heard from Deshaun Watson, there has been him maintaining, I did nothing wrong. I didn't harass anybody. I didn't assault anybody. So with all due respect to the Browns, and in this case, there's really none due, bullshit. And this is the larger point about sports organizations and this in general is there's no more, like, if there ever was, there never should have been, but there certainly shouldn't be now, any benefit of the doubt. If you're telling us that someone's doing the work, bullshit, show us. Show us a detailed plan of what this person is actually doing, because we get all these second chance people that come out of the woodwork right now and hold their hand up because they're afraid of, some version of this affecting their life and how they'd want to be perceived after. It's, hey, listen, we all love second chances if you're willing to actually show contrition and do the work necessary to be better. And there is usually none of that around when these happen in sports. It's they get inside a new organization, the team throws up some banner plate about how we got a system in place in him and a setup and it's going to make him a better person and we think we can do this, that. Bullshit. You think he can be a good football player for you. He plays the most important position in North American sports and he can help you win games. And so if you're not going to be part of me would almost, it wouldn't respect, but I'd appreciate honesty more of just saying, hey, this guy's going to win us football games and we're going to get through this bad PR right now to that point, because no one should believe the NFL or the teams involved when they say this person is doing all the right things behind the scene and doing the work. No, they're doing all the right things in football meetings. They're probably doing all the right things on practice field. They're probably being a semi-decent teammate. Like, I'm sure Deshaun Watson amongst the players on that team is, taking all those guys to Cabo or whatever to throw and doing all the things that would make him a good teammate. But none of it has to do with any sort of rehabilitation or any sort of addressing what's at the heart of what went on here.
Yeah. No, go ahead, Jordan.
I just had a question just for the next step of that, because as I'm playing catch up. So the NFL appealing that, is that them being like, oh, we're trying to be the good guys, it should be worse?
Yes, it is absolutely. And I said it's a strange position because no one's going to believe that the NFL is the good guy in this, but they get the chance to look. They get the chance to look like it here, and there's complications about what happens after this because the NFLPA and Deshaun Watson's camp can sue. And I have some empathy for the NFLPA because they're always guarding against the small incremental progress they've made in extracting power from ownership and from the league, and this unfortunately is tangent enough to that to where they've got to operate in that way. I mean, we just watched the other day in a very different world, one of the owners in the NFL guilty, basically charged with tampering and accused of potentially tanking, punished a fraction of the amount that we've seen players. So that's kind of what they're always guarding against. But yeah, this is the NFL coming in and saying, hey, we recommended, again in writing, that this would be an indefinite suspension that would at least keep him out the 2022 regular season and postseason. And they're going to go after that with, like you said, Jordan, the chance to look like the good guy.
Got it.
Yeah. Which, kind of leads us like, what is the right thing? Because it's not black or white in a situation like this. And we had a great episode that Jessica Luther did for us on what do you do after this happens in sports. And I think a lot of it surprised people because a big focus is something we've all talked about: contrition, rehabilitation, all of that. Do I want someone to be unemployed and on the street and, have a terrible life forever? Or do I want them to be rehabilitated back into society? I want the latter. We're really unfamiliar with how that works in this country because we can't do it successfully. Our prison systems do not do it successfully. In fact, often do the opposite. So it's a murky answer that's not satisfactory. However, it is not 6 weeks. So I hope that the NFL puts some serious thought, effort, and intention on how do we rehabilitate somebody. And step one is he has to understand that what he did was wrong, and he does not at this point. And there's always the conversation of like, well, you guys just want this guy to be out of football forever. What we need is for people who harm other people to understand that what they're doing is harmful and wrong, or they will do it again, especially if they're paid millions and millions and millions of dollars are popular athletes and have power and influence. I do not understand what anybody thinks 6 weeks is going to do.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Like
nothing.
you said, he just got not just millions of dollars, the most guaranteed money ever in the history of the NFL. As soon as he was cleared of criminal charges, they said, all right, bet, and threw him more money than anyone had ever gotten. So you're right. And Jessica and others have done a great job in explaining that, because this is also a reminder, and Jordan, you brought this up earlier about expecting more from the NFL. In a country where already the larger systems fail, expecting our sports leagues to have the ability to do this. Dan Le Batard talks about it all the time. Once the NFL jumped in on the punishment game for crimes committed off the field, they waded into really tough waters, because now every time something like this happens, we're going to say, well, you suspended DeAndre Hopkins 6 games for testing positive for PEDs, and you suspended Calvin Ridley an entire season for a 48-leg parlay that was never going to hit. And now you're going to do this for like much more heinous actions and accusations. They're always going to let us down because they're wholly unequipped to do what they're trying to do. And so it is the hope that eventually they will put power in the hands of people who understand these systems far better and allow them to do their jobs. The NFL made a rash of hires in positions of power of women that people expected to have an influence on these situations that so far we've yet to really see. And so I'm with you, Haley. I hope that one day that comes. I would like to be able to be a lot more proud of being a fan of this league in moments like this than I currently am, but it makes it conflicted very often, because it's a very, very, very flawed arbiter and a flawed decision maker here.
Yeah. And I think the last thing I'll say before we move on is the same as we said with the first thing we talked about, Brittany Griner. While we're all talking about this, thinking about this, we have the privilege of being able to think about this from a distance. Put yourself in the place of the Browns team massage therapist, who knows that now it is her job, because I think part of Sue Robinson's verdict, right? Yeah. Okay. Was, okay, no more outside massage therapists. Do you even understand what you just fucking did to this person? And for all, if he gets traded, can you imagine if you're like the Ravens massage therapist and you find out he got traded to your team? Or for that matter, anybody who works in the office who feels like they might be a target of assault, harassment, anything from him. So yeah, there are actual people who are actually hurting, actually scared. Think about that next time you reply to a tweet. And I hope the NFL thinks about that, but we'll see. They don't seem to think much. Okay, our next horrible topic for the day.
Can we take a quick break?
Oh yes, we're gonna take a quick break.
Everyone catch your breath.
Yeah, maybe take some Molly or something.
Molly.
All right, we're back. The next terrible headline is that Paige Bueckers will miss her 2022-2023 season after tearing her ACL. Jordan, what? I mean, it feels kind of ridiculous to say, what does this mean?
It just sucks. Like, ACLs suck. They are so terrible. Why are they in our bodies? I don't get it. She was just playing a pickup game. The MRI came back that she tore it, and this is just another injury in her career that we all know is gonna be great. I think that's just like, we're on a united front there. She is an amazing player. She will have success in the WNBA. She is already gearing up to be the face of the WNBA before she's even in it. So this is it's just awful news. Thinking of the UConn team for next year, thinking of how she could potentially come out after next season. It's just a lot of things that as a basketball fan, even as Paige Bueckers fans, but you don't want to see that for anybody, and especially ACL. It's like the death wish in basketball, especially for women. Our ACLs are not as strong, and it's terrible. Just why are they there? I don't get it.
I want to go back to the simpler times when we were in like middle school and elementary school, when it's impossible to get hurt because you don't like have fully developed ligaments yet. Like you can just fall like a limp noodle and get back up. Like we need to find science. Please get on that, because having to do basketball seasons without people like Paige Bueckers sucks. It's a huge bummer. And the thing I was talking about with someone yesterday too, because like you said, she's going to have a long, fruitful career. She's an absolute star. But it does also suck, like, especially in the world of college sports, with, college basketball, there's so much talk, especially on the men's side, of how one and done affects fan relationships with players. And with Paige, she was such a name right when she stepped on campus that we've all gotten to really know and grow with her. We've watched her become this massive star in the NIL era, where she's really been the face of what we always said that could look like for women's athletics, and especially women's college basketball. And to watch all of that, and you have so many people that have a relationship with Paige Bueckers from the outside, but then on the inside, and you guys know this as an athlete, like, rehab's a lonely process. You are on a completely different schedule than the rest of your team. You're often isolated doing a lot of that. You don't get to be involved in as much of that. And so my mind always goes there. My brother went through a lot of that stuff when we were playing together. I had a lot of friends that did. And like, for Paige, who's been such an important part of that team and such a galvanizer since she stepped foot on campus, I'm sure and I hope that the team will return that favor as she goes through this, because she's going to be back. But the road there, especially like you said, Jordan, for something like an ACL, while we know how to do it and there's plenty of people that are recovered, it doesn't make the process any easier.
No, absolutely
exactly.
not. Yeah. And you do hear that all the time from athletes when it'll be like years after their injury, and they'll be talking about it in somewhere where they feel comfortable sharing. They'll be like, that is the loneliest you can be, and you feel lost. And hopefully because she's on a campus and college teams are just more intimate by nature, hopefully she doesn't feel that. But we love Paige here. She always seems like she's way wiser than her years. She actually, I remember not very long ago, she like asked Biden to do something about Brittany Griner, and it like got more attention than a lot of
literally
people,
anything else.
Yeah.
She was on I think NBA Today, and it was an interview all about her, and she was like, right before I go, she's really great at that. She knows the platform that she has, and using to talk about bigger things than herself. And even through this, she had a long Instagram caption once this news came out, and she's still so positive and just like, this is my path. I'm rolling with it, and I know it's going to be great on the other side. And I think when someone is that positive about it, you can't help but just like, piggyback on that and be like, okay, we're with you. What do we need? What do we need to do? Because we know that this is going to be, a whole season, especially in college, when you're just, all you're thinking about is next season. Okay, I worked on what I had to do this season, but next season, I'm going to shine. Next season, it's going to be great. And so when you take a whole season out, that has to completely mess with you and just cancel out a year out of your already limited years in college. And the expectation that's on her to be at this level after next year and the year after that, people are already saying she has to be this type of star. So we got your back, Paige. We love you. You're in our thoughts.
And we promise we'll have patience when you come back.
Yes.
Because as the Warriors fans on this pod, you cannot just expect someone to be Klay Thompson after Klay Thompson hasn't been himself for 2 years. So we will have patience with you. Okay, the next topic, I guess, isn't as sad as the rest. I just think it's sad to me, not because he didn't take them up on it, just because these numbers exist. Tiger Woods turned down somewhere in the ballpark between 700 to 800 million from Live Club Golf. His net worth, I checked just to kind of compare the two, is estimated to be 1 billion. So 1 billion plus 1 plus 700 million is, that would almost double it. Right? Okay. There's a lot of zeros. It would be 1 instead of 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. It'd be 1 7 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0.
This is like when an ace comes out of the blackjack table for me. I'm just like, oh, my brain just melts. I have no idea what's
I'm like,
happening.
literally me when Walgreens asked me what my birthday is for my for my fucking medications. I'm like, what month was I born? I take that back. He'd actually have 1,699,999,999 after taxes.
Right.
It's the billionaire tax is $1. Yeah, that's wild. I mean, the fact that they have this money is just like, that's scary. But also it's Tiger, so he's the biggest name that they could possibly get. But it's giving desperate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and all the live golfers just tried to sue the PGA because they realized, like, if they don't let these dudes play in the majors, you're going to hit a point where most of and right now it's all like guys that are kind of washed that are going over there for the most part. Like there's like 3 guys that are pretty solid players on the tour, and everyone else like sniffed winning a major or won one like a decade ago and is willing to take this money to be a name. And they're like, oh, we're not going to be able to get any of the good guys and keep this going if they shut us out here. So yeah, all of it is very much starting to give desperation by Liv, which is probably good.
It just hit me that Liv is gonna have to become like a, what do you call it, Harry? Like a mid-level marketing, a pyramid scheme. Because these golfers that they've gotten to commit are gonna have to recruit their friends on Facebook.
Oh my!
And they're gonna have to recruit
Wow.
their friends. It's gonna be never ending. Yeah.
I can see the DM now. Hey friend, are you looking to make some extra cash? Are you happy with your current situation? I have an opportunity for you.
Yes.
If you join Club Live, you get this stainless steel knife. this 3-sharpened stainless steel
Knife.
butcher's
If you
knife.
add another friend, we'll throw in the case for it. But
Yeah,
you have
it's-
to make sure they sign their life away.
Passive income, baby. Add it to the portfolio.
It's passive
Oh
income.
my god.
See how I'm on a beach right now during the
Yeah.
week? This could be you.
This could be you, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That hey girl, when you know it's hey girl in a DM, you know what's about to
Man,
come.
You already know.
Hey girl is mid-level marketing. Hey girly is we're dating the same man, and I'm about to tell you.
Yeah.
That's slight difference, but it means all the world.
Same but different. Same but different.
Hey, girly, I know we don't know each other.
But
But
oh no.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have learned a lot being on this show, just sort of soaking it all. This is a new frontier, though, I have to say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the hey girly.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it is exactly what Sierra said. It's like, I know we don't know each other, but and then
I
they
just
go
thought
like,
you
Wanna-
should know.
Yep, just
Yep.
want to let you know.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, all you golfers out there, expect it.
Yes.
There's
Phil's
a
gonna
message
send
like
you a
that.
hey girly.
I love the thought of like one of the like some PGA golfer listening to this podcast, listening to this very carefully, and then the live golf recruiter messes up and throws a hey girly in there, and now his head is spinning. He's like, wait a minute. I gotta call my girlfriend. What's going on?
The nuance, yes.
gosh.
Have you guys ever had anyone call you girly pop?
Yes.
Yeah, condescension, right? Yeah.
Really?
Yes. Hey, girly pop. Okay, she thinks I'm 12. Yeah, mentally. Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that.
Yeah. I've only gotten it once, but I knew what it was right away. I've never forgotten about that. Sierra, is it similar with
Yeah.
you?
It's like someone who's not, they don't think that you're thinking about things. They're not expecting you to critically think about girly pop. They're like, hey, girly pop.
Yeah.
And it's
Okay.
not that they're like 108. And
No,
Right. Yeah, that seems like a Prohibition era greeting. How do you do, girly pop?
I actually would prefer that. I prefer if it came to me in kind of an old newsy sort of style.
The mid-Atlantic accent, which is the only style we're allowed to read news headlines in back then.
Yours was really good. Yeah.
Have you heard the reporting? Girly pop out, girlies.
Okay, so it's
Trouble on the way.
girl is mid-level marketing. Hey girly is we're dating the same man, and Hey Girly Pop is about suffrage. So I'm glad we ironed that out.
That's the only thing that makes sense. That's
It's
the
the only
Bible.
thing that makes sense.
This is now canon.
Yeah.
Right.
We have next on the list. This does fit in with the show being a bummer, but in some ways, it's hard to think about it more than he has already, which is Aaron Rodgers' new tattoo. And also, well, newish, it's like a week or two old. Probably took the tape off. And his ayahuasca retreat, which is very interesting. I'll say, just to go back to the NFL's rulings not being very consistent. Josh Gordon got 25 games for weed, right? Which at the time was legal in some states. Aaron Rodgers saying that he did ayahuasca. If you don't know what ayahuasca is, look it up. Honestly, seems fun. Has DMT in it. And DMT is a banned substance in the US. So him saying so openly, knowing he will get, this news will spread everywhere, hey, I did this very illegal drug that is not on the path to legalization in the US, might be in Oregon. I don't know. But I feel like they've legalized everything in a fun way. Yeah, so that's just another thing that just occurred to me that feels pretty lopsided. Anyway, ayahuasca is the one where you throw up and then you remember things, childhood trauma. Again, seems pretty tight. And then his tattoo is, I suggest you look it up unless you're driving. And then I'll describe it. Hang on, let me pull it up
how
myself.
would you describe it?
Because I was very interested because he came out and did the very much hey, it's my first tattoo thing. I'm more than happy to explain every little bit to you. But then he also did the very Aaron Rodgers thing of being unless you're a student of astrology, you're really not going to understand what I'm telling you. So, Haley, I was hoping you could help me because I am not a student of astrology. So I looked at this tattoo and I was these are very nice thin lines. They did a very good job.
That's what I thought. Yeah,
So-
that's what I thought.
On the left, there's the M that has the swirly, and then it's like a nice M. That is for Scorpio. So there's a Scorpio. The top one, that's like an arrow, and it's going like this. Oh shit, which is that one?
That's Sagittarius.
That's Sagittarius. Okay, that's Sagittarius, which is Sierra's
He
sign,
would.
right?
Yeah, it is.
And then
It makes sense.
on the right is the waters. That's Aquarius. Even though
Yeah.
Aquarius isn't a water sign. So that's where you get a lot of Aquarius should be a water sign. I don't know if that's his chart. I don't know what that represents. But those are the signs, and that's the star extension, I believe, is just probably those as well. The eye is an eye ball. And then who among us doesn't have an eye tweeted on them? I'll admit I do have one. I was drunk, but whatever. It's not that deep. It's not. I didn't even know about astrology then. I just liked how it looked. None of my tattoos have a purpose. So that's one thing about me.
It's the way it should be. Normalize just getting tattoos because they look cool.
I know.
Agree.
My
Oh,
first
just look
tattoo is a palm tree. So I wish we could dissect it this much, but it was on a page of options, and I liked it. And I'm from California. That's as far as it goes.
If you think about the episode we have coming out next Tuesday, that is the Max and George episode, and you talk about you getting that tattoo, which is one of my favorite stories ever. So if you're listening to this, make sure you listen Tuesday because it is incredible. The other things on his tattoo, where it looks like we've got a happy lion? No. Oh, he's mad. A mad lion. He's roaring. And then he's facing a kind of just like a chill lion who's just like, dude, why are you roaring at me? And is the phrase inside of you there's two lions? I don't think so, is it? No.
Wolves.
What is the wolves?
I think it's
okay,
two
so
wolves.
I think he just kind of got it wrong. He maybe forgot. It's just a situation where, yeah, you know when you
inside every person there's an angry lion and a chill lion, and the one that wins is the one you feed DMT to.
yes,
That's the updated one.
Then you've got like the Death Star kind of wrap outside of all of it, and then you've got some shading, and the rest of it's just circles. And I like circles, so there you go. Oh no, wait, it's longer.
Sunset.
Oh, I clicked on a
He's got
shorter
the sunset,
picture.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I just zoomed in. Okay, it's not the Death Star. It's a circle on top of another circle, and that's the sunset. Clearly, Harry nailed it. It's a beach. There's the sunset. Then you've got a little fan, which,
It's kind of
Yeah. It all is like nice. Like it looks very good.
expensive.
It's a well executed tattoo. Those lines are gonna look so bad in 10 years.
Oh.
It's gonna look so bad.
And I mean, he puts an armband on most every game. I'm like, buddy, you did not think the placement on this through very much. You're going to be going back for touch-ups in 2 years, if it makes it that long.
Yeah.
The tattoo really reminds me of like somebody, like a college freshman decorating their dorm room whose aesthetic heart is in the right place, where he's like, I'm going to have 3 plants and I'm going to have a picture of my mom and dad. And everybody's like, right on. He's like, and I'm going to have Kate Upton. And
all the rules of beer pong.
35 skull tins in a peace sign. And it's like, no, you were good with the
I made a throne out of Bud Light cases.
Yeah.
like,
but he's also got a really chill tapestry with the yin yang.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it has to be a tapestry in there, definitely.
Yeah.
But it's also like after Psych 101 where you're like, whoa, my mind is open. I have not thought about this stuff in so long. That is, I feel like, the level he went and got this tattoo at.
Well, I like Spencer Hall tweeted this out, and it's so true. Like, with all the work you've got to put in to get to be Aaron Rodgers, the football player, you kind of miss the window where other people are like doing drugs and messing around. And so Aaron's kind of doing that phase right now. And I also maintain, as someone who has been single well into my 30s for a long time and just like dated some along the way, which Aaron Rodgers, serial monogamous, serial dater, like I always find myself taking little things from every relationship where I'm like, oh, I kind of like this thing. And at the beginning of relationships, you're very willing to try different things in the name of making a connection, because you're still at that point where you're like, all right, I got to kind of present the best version of myself. I want to, show that I'm willing to meet this person. And so Aaron Rodgers, a lot was made of his new girlfriend and a lot of the influence there. So I think maybe he's just like, oh, I'm trying to like be a part of this. He's a guy that thinks he's very thoughtful and worldly. And so we see him going through a lot of phases lately. And I'm like, oh, you know what? He's trying. He's keeping an open mind to these things, even though Aaron Rodgers like made it really unfun to talk about him being a weird COVID truther last year. Like, this would all be a lot more fun if Aaron Rodgers didn't reveal himself to be sort of a quack on this stuff.
Yeah, because his aesthetic, the aesthetic he's doing right now will mature into like one that is pretty nice. I'm just talking about the tattoo specifically, not the truther stuff. Like, in like 8 years, he's going to have, it's going to be good. But I'd break up. He's not married to the teenage pregnancy actress anymore.
No.
Shailene Woodley.
No. Him and Shailene broke up, and now they're like, I don't know what like the proper term for it is, but essentially people thought that his new girlfriend was a witch.
A Wiccan?
A Wiccan? Maybe that's it?
I don't know. That's just a line from a rom-com that I've watched a lot of. He's just not that into you. She gets seated at a Rachel gets seated at a table at her sister's wedding after she breaks up with Ben Affleck because Ben Affleck won't marry her. And she's like, you got to marry me. And he's like, I just don't want to get married. So they break up. And then her sister at her wedding, which she's now going to single, seats her next to the single guy. And they're talking about like each other, like getting to know each other. And he's like, I'm a Wiccan. So it's a witch. Male witch. Oh, so she can't be a Wiccan. It's a male witch.
Oh, okay.
A Wiccan is a male witch.
Okay.
Does anyone know what Aaron Rodgers' rumored girlfriend's name is?
I only because I just looked it up, so I won't.
I
spoil
don't, but
it.
I
Any
really want to
guesses?
guess. Give me one hint, like a light hint.
Yeah.
Here's a light hint. There are 3 words in her name.
In her
Well,
first
that's
name?
not. We have
In her
any
whole name. I'm going to say
First
name.
Do we have any dashes in it?
No.
We have.
How about
It's one of Beyonce's
and Mary Kate?
children.
Yeah, one of Beyonce's children
Oh,
is the first word.
First word, yeah.
blue.
I don't know.
Oh, is this? You
Mhm.
sent the link
Blue?
for the.
Mm-hmm.
Blue
Blue of Earth.
and Marie. Okay. Mm-hmm. Blue of Earth.
Blue of Earth
Blue
is
of
what
Earth.
she goes
So
by.
Close.
But only
Blue
spelled
Earth.
with a U, not an
Yeah.
E.
Yeah.
Not a UE. That's too mainstream.
Yeah.
But what I
Oh
put
my
in the
God.
chat,
This is so tacky.
I put in the chat that is her tattoo. Looks a little
Oh!
similar.
Yeah, see? They got
Aaron
a couple's
Rodgers.
tattoo.
And that's going to look bad in 10 years, too. This fine
Also,
line
gonna look
tattoo.
bad because they're definitely not gonna be together. So
No.
So why? This was a very
This is
rash
like the
decision.
Aaron Rodgers version of like them each getting their names tattooed on each other.
Mhm.
But it's like them getting their philosophies tattooed on each other. He dates people who look the same,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
He got
right?
tight.
Definitely.
Like they
has a
all
type,
kind of.
yeah.
It's like they have one thing that they've altered. Yeah. Wow.
She has a podcast called Deja Blue.
Credit where
That
it's
is
due.
a strip club.
Great name.
Yeah,
it's
can't lie to you. That's a good name.
that is definitely a strip club though. You are 100%
Have I ever told you all about the
Deja
strip club here in Louisville?
No.
No.
Well, technically it's New Albany. I've never told you guys about this. It is my favorite name of a strip club ever, and I don't think if I gave you 1,000,000 guesses, you'd come up with it or believe me. But it's called the Rustic Frog.
That's not an antique store.
Yeah.
It's a strip club.
It's
strip
got to
club
be a
here.
halfie, right? Like it does something else in there. It's like a Cracker
During
Barrel
the
where there's
day.
also a clothing store.
I was gonna say, yeah. It sounds like they. Wow.
Rustic. That seems like you just put it in like a generator for just random
Yeah.
words
Like a
and
Wu-Tang
rustic
Clan
and
name
frog.
generator.
Bars in New Hampshire. Yeah. Nope. This is a strip club.
They've got a Twitter page, Kentuckiana's premier entertainment complex, newly renovated Mexican restaurant, and the finest entertainers in the area for a hopping good time.
Oh.
Wow! Wow!
That's good.
Marketing. Take
Yeah.
notes, people.
I want y'all to see this logo because it literally says the words rustic frog but has a naked woman on it, and you're like, these don't equal each other.
Why is
Oh
the
my
woman
God.
green?
I'm
Why?
obsessed with this.
Wait,
Wow.
that's kind of
Rustic Frog, do you need a social media manager?
Harry's like this.
This is like in every kid's fairy tale where the princess kisses a frog and he turns back into a prince. Like here, a prince kissed the frog and she turned into a glowing green stripper.
If you guys want me to get you rustic frog strip club merch, I will.
I was about to say, I'm like,
So
I know
down.
you have them.
I mean,
they got a
yes.
pocket tee?
Absolutely.
Do they have a pocket? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm excited to get an actual rustic frog, like the actual image of what I'd imagine a rustic frog
Right.
is like, as my next tattoo now that we've established that they're just about looking cool.
Yeah.
Just about looking cool. Don't have to be anything else. Aaron Rodgers.
Actually, maybe we should
Good
all
time.
get the real thing, like the real rustic frog logo with the woman in the back.
As a tattoo?
It's a good
In it.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
Do it for the stories.
Yeah.
Harry, what's wrong?
I went to www.rusticfrog.com and the music plays when you log onto the website, and so my headphones just like exploded with.
What music were they playing?
Yeah, well, please describe the music.
It was. Well, I was only on it for a split second, but it's kind of sounded like the beginning of an infomercial.
It's not as sexy as I wanted.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
not guessing that.
I mean, I'll go back. Let's see if we can get more.
I am always interested in like strip club music choice as an aesthetic. Like,
yeah, because a lot of my friends who are strippers say that you don't get to pick the music. So,
that's what I mean.
Oh, what?
And I said a lot too. I don't want to like. I'm not cool. Yeah, the cool level's not that far. But I have also heard that from people who are not friends. It's just like, this is a known fact. And there's sometimes a thing where like if you don't get along with the DJ or the person playing music, they will on purpose sabotage you, which is something that I just saw on Twitter. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the worst song to strip to would be now.
Give me a genre.
I'm thinking of the infomercial song. That can't be good.
I did go to a strip club where someone had to strip to Breaking Benjamin. Like very like angsty alt hardcore rock.
That's a choice.
The more you get to like scream, the angstier you get, I think actually good, you know, because at least there's like some emotion. Like, doesn't necessarily have to be sexy to be a stripper song. Or a good stripper anthem, I'd say. The slower you get and the more like remorseful, like you're missing something, you know, then it's like
the sadder it is. That's
the sadder it's worse,
like John Mayer slow dancing in a burning room.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That has to be the worst one. You're at a strip club at like 10 a.m.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
You're
if
eating
I was
a
gonna
waterlogged
sabotage
steak.
someone, I would do Billy Joel. Just like any Billy Joel.
Oh my goodness.
I just saw Billy Joel in concert back in South Bend, and now all I'm doing is trying to catalog like which Billy Joel, but all of them would be the
Vienna's
worst.
the worst song to strip to.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hair's face. Oh.
Yeah.
You don't want to be thinking about stuff when you're watching a stripper.
No, you want nothing. Yeah. Completely
nothing
fine.
going on.
Yeah, just
I assume.
Maybe where the frog merges.
While we're talking clubs, when we were talking about Live, I keep thinking of Club Live in Miami, and that there's this Saudi, like, how funny would it be if this Saudi company was just paying Tiger Woods for walkthroughs at Club Live with like him and like Future,
with the sparklers, yeah.
I'm picturing him in full golf getup with a caddy walking through with sparklers.
Right.
Man, I do that for 800 mil.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, guys, we really talked about. We had a roller coaster today.
We did. It went from sad tears to laughing tears, which is it's a great roller coaster. Yeah.
But the order was, if we're building an actual roller coaster, I don't know if you want to start on even ground, dip further, come up a little bit, dip further, and then all the way high. And at the end, there's like
backwards.
Yeah, it's a little backwards, but.
So next time you're saying we start with the rustic frog.
Yeah. Next time we'll start with if they do have merch, I will get you guys rustic frog merch. Yeah.
Please. That's a limited edition.
Shout out to the guys and gals stripping there. All right. Well, is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
I just have to give a shout out to Severance. I just watched it and I'm kind of upset at Haley and Harry for not really telling me how great it was. I feel like you guys kind of hinted at it. And it took one of my closest friends to be like, no, you have to watch this. I was like, okay. It was amazing. I haven't stopped thinking about it. That was one of the best season finales I have ever watched. Ever. I was yelling at the TV. I was at the edge of my seat. I was sweating. All of the things. It was great. I'm not going to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't watched it.
Jordan,
I feel like
everyone's
if
watched
this
it.
Okay.
You're the last person. Everyone's watched
Awesome.
it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And also this misplaced anger at me and Harry, who were just trying to not be forceful.
No, you guys were saying it was scary. And I can't watch anything scary, even though, like we talked about before, I did watch the last season of Stranger Things. I've watched Stranger Things all the way through. But that last season was actually, I was under a blanket. Like I was watching it through a pillow, basically. But this was not scary. It was thought-provoking and conversation-inducing. It was wonderful. I had a great time.
To defend Haley and I think, and to talk about the show, I think you just fell into the same trap that Haley and I did when trying to recommend it, which makes the show so good, is you can't say too much about it.
That's true.
Mhm.
So we were like, it's really good, but I'm not, and it's kind of about forgetting work and you come back in. But like, other than that, I was like, I don't want to tell you anything about the show because that's what's so fun about it is like, you know, so it's hard to recommend.
Well, Jordan, you also, I didn't want to be responsible for like, it sounds like your threshold is a little bit different than mine in terms of, you know, things that, not scary. What would you call it? A thriller, like thriller-esque. I just didn't want to be pushy for once in my life and look at what happened.
Recommending content's hard. There's too much of it. There's too much of it. And I feel bad.
There's so much. And you don't want to set the bar too high because that's where I always fall in. Like, this is the best. I'm setting the bar high for Severance. Like, whatever. You have to watch it. But sometimes you come in and you're like, okay, they tell me this is the best show on earth. And then you're watching it with those expectations and it's going to fall short. So that's the hard part with recommending. I understand. Okay, I apologize for putting my anger towards you guys.
You know what didn't fall short? Sierra dropping the Rustic Frog merch into the chat.
It's really good.
These things are incredible. The football jerseys.
Yeah, brother.
Oh.
I'm thinking
And they
about
all
the
say
mug.
paying for college on the back.
Yep.
Well, except for one of them, which
I
says
do my own stunts.
Stripper Union 69, which before seeing the 69, I thought was real. And I was like, this is the proceeds
I know.
go
I was
toward
like,
the
okay, pro
union.
union.
The proceeds go toward the union. Let me buy. You know, just me being like the most stereotypical. But I think it's a joke because it says 69. So
Yeah.
I do my own stuff.
I would love if it wasn't a
Wait,
joke and they
guys.
actually got that on their union. It's like, all right, you know what? Good for them.
sex workers need unions. This would be a beautiful thing. But instead, it's been reduced to a joke. So thanks again. Thanks a lot, Rustic Frog. But yeah, if anyone wants one of these, I'll definitely pick it up. So just let me know.
Oh,
Please.
there's
In black.
some rock solid dad hats here too. God.
Yeah. This is all good stuff.
I'm no stranger to the frog.
Did we-
What happened to Harry?
Did we lose Harry?
We lost Harry? I didn't
Yes.
know that could happen because this is his Zoom.
So I was telling them I was listening to the podcast about that part of the discussion you guys did about Jimmy Butler's hair. And obviously, you know, as kind of a continuation, I enjoyed the hair podcast that Jordan did a while back in the NBA, and hearing it in reference because I had questions about Jimmy Butler's hair and what had gone on there. So it was one super informative, but also reminded me of back at ESPN at one point, Dr. Pepper sent me a gift bag that had the Lil Sweet costume of the guy from the commercials. And part of the costume was this Dr. Pepper purple wig. And so I put the whole thing on to take a picture. And then I was like, wait a minute, I feel powerful as shit right now. I started like putting in a little pony. There's video of me doing the hair flip, which I don't even know how I remembered how to do it. It had been so long since I had hair, but I felt sassy as all hell. And I kept it on for the entire radio show that I did. And it was probably some of my best work because I was empowered by the look. I had those like fishnet gloves on too. It was a whole aesthetic that I was just really proud of.
Yes.
Wow.
Dude, hair is
Love that for you.
it's powerful. When I was in fifth grade, maybe sixth grade, there was a woman in our class. I won't say her name, but I had a big crush on her.
Oh,
And
Lord.
she
You won't say your name from 5th grade.
I'm fine. Her name's Renee. Her name's Renee. Her name.
If you're out there, I miss you, Renee.
Yeah.
Hey, girly.
All right. I had a big crush on Renee. and she dyed a streak in her hair red, which was against the rules at the Jewish day school I went to, but it was
Rebel.
Yeah, rebel, right, exactly. And so the next year I was like, I'm dyeing my hair to impress Renee. And so I bleached my hair, and then I got blue highlights in my hair.
Okay.
And so I so serious. I'm like sixth grade with like literally like blue streaks. And I mean, it felt amazing. Like I felt like so cool. And things didn't work out with Renee and I, but I did. It was inspiring, you know.
Yeah, that is cool.
That is cool. That's a great,
man.
great story.
Do you have
Hair is the
pictures
best.
of that?
Yeah, we need to
Yeah,
share.
I would love
Sure, I
to see
do
some pictures.
My mom.
I love it. I love doing that as a middle schooler too, because I think maybe this is a little bit different for girls than boys, but middle school is a deeply intense time.
Yeah.
Where like that's where I started becoming self-conscious and all of the kind of, you know, so doing that fifth,
It hadn't
sixth
gotten
grade,
to me
that's
yet.
Yeah, okay.
Clearly.
Yeah, extremely
appreciate
like
you not
hopeless
lying.
romantic vibes.
Yes.
Like, oh, this
Yeah.
girl I like dyed her hair. I'm gonna dye my
dye my
hair.
hair.
That.
Yeah.
That's a much cooler version than what Aaron Rodgers did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes. Hence,
God, that's
Harry was in
good.
6th grade. Aaron Rodgers.
Badass.
The
Wow. Hair is
grown up.
powerful. Hair is wonderful. Love that. That was a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Mike.
thank you. That's wonderful.
Was V inspired? So nice.
Cool.
Right.
Thanks, friends.